Here we go. It's September 16th. It's a beautiful day in Milwaukee. It's actually a gorgeous day in Milwaukee. Um, and we're gonna freaking rock and roll. So a couple things to start off with. One, what are we talking about today? I'm in this like whole strategic planning mode right now, thinking about like next year, the next 3 years, the next 5 years. I've been doing a lot of no shock data and deep diving into understanding where we are, where we're headed, not only from a business standpoint, but demographically, what's happening in the market. And I'm going to share with you an article that I think you need to be paying attention to. And it was behind a paywall, but I paid for the paywall, and then I create the synopsis so that you don't have to pay for the paywall. And I'm going to give it to you today because I think it's really important for you to understand as you plan ahead into 2026 and beyond. Two, I'm going to talk about an ethos of a brand. And it'll be a quick story, but I'm going to share with you a model that I've been sharing, but I'm going to show with you how it comes to life in real life. And we have a handful of people to celebrate and so on and so forth. Sound good? All right. So jumping into mission, vision, values, beliefs, and perspectives. And one of the things I do want to touch on is within our Y4C2TEs is communication, seek first to understand. Okay? Seek first to understand. And I would encourage you guys to think about the phrase come from curiosity. Because I think in today's world, and I don't really have a good finger or pulse on it, as events happen in people's lives, and that's a very broad topic, it's very quick and easy for things to be ignited fast. And there are a lot of strong emotions to things, and there's a lot of varying viewpoints to things. And you may not agree with how to interpret or how to respond to certain situations within life. But one of the things I've found, at least broadly, macroly, and one of the things that I try and do internally within our people is help people understand first, like spread love and joy first, right? Respect each other, come from compassion, and come from curiosity. And I'm not here to tell you anyone's viewpoints on any of the world matters right now or right or wrong, not my place. But what I have found and what I think is somewhat disappointing is the lack of decorum or respect that people have for one another. And so I put that on your guys' radar this morning as it relates to our Y4C2TEs from a communication standpoint, because I think shared humanity is far greater than division. And we need to be thinking about how we respect one another, I think more broadly. And I think that's your peers. I think that's your own family members, and it could be your neighbors. But I lead with that because I think there's a lot of strong emotions going on right now in the world. And I think that sometimes we need reminders of like, it's important for us to take a pause and say, all right, we got to love each other. We got to respect each other. We have to have compassion for each other, because if we don't have love, respect, and compassion, what do we have left? Nothing. And so and I would argue that if you don't have any of those three things within your life, it's a really sad state of affairs. So I encourage you to respect one another. I encourage you to love one another, and I encourage you to have compassion for one another. And you don't have to agree with one another, and that's okay. But I encourage you to think about that as it relates to how you respond to your friends, your neighbors, your family members, because I've been at dinner tables with family members where things have gotten incredibly intense, and then all of a sudden someone said something they wish they wouldn't have because of a matter, and it's sparked something that you can't take back. So think about that. And just, I guess that would be my challenge to the group this week. Cool? Sweet. One other thing that I did want to close the loop on and also shared with you, I think, as it relates to our mission, vision, values, beliefs, and perspective, is, on August 22nd, I believe, a lot of us in southeastern Wisconsin had experienced devastating floods, water, things that took out prized possessions, so on and so forth. And we moved quickly to try and identify, hey, who needs help? Who needs help? How can we help? What does that look like? And having, quite frankly, we've been very fortunate, and from a natural disaster standpoint, we've never really had to deal with this. So it was a little kind of like the blind leading the blind. To be totally honest with you, from a leader's perspective, we thought about buying fans and dehumidifiers, and by the time we sourced them, people had already had them, and it was kind of this, like, it was really fast, and I'd never dealt with it before. Never really been in a natural disaster. We've been very fortunate. So what we did is we sent out a survey asking people. We sent this out on, I clearly have my dates wrong. The flood was before August 22nd. But on August 12th, we sent out a survey and asked people to respond, just to say, like, hey, if you need help, we want to know. And we want to know how we can help you. We got a bunch of responses back. The majority of the responses were, thank you for caring. I don't need help. Help somebody else. And I was like, sweet. Okay, cool. And then there was a handful of folks that responded and said, look, I could really use some help. The insurance isn't covering it. Here are my losses. This is, this, that, and the other. So we've authorized north of probably $10,000 to be released to, quite frankly, 8 people that we identified that needed a ton of help. And we wrote them a check. I don't know. It's what we do. But so we wrote them a check just to say, like, look, I'm not quite sure how you want to use this, but you can use it based on what you want to do. And I share that with you because the money that we have sitting on our balance sheets for KW Cares comes from your peers. And it's people who contribute at $5 a closing, $10 a closing, $2 a closing. Some people do $100 a closing. And we build this fund for when people are in need. Sometimes it's used for, like, associates who are going through cancer treatments. Other times we've had people who have lost a loved one. Other times it's you got a flood and you got a lot to clean up with, and it was an unexpected expense and you need some help. And the way we can help is, if you bought dehumidifiers or a new water heater, or gosh darn it, you had to buy a new washer and dryer. Hopefully for those that needed it the most, we were able to direct some funds that way. And I wanted to close that loop with you guys to say, like, we're not overly public about the KW Cares and what we do to it. And I realize that we probably need to be better at telling that story, but we made an impact in that way for those that responded to the survey, and just wanted you to know that we took care of those within our community. Cool? All right, sweet. All right, with that, we also have a handful of people to celebrate in the month of August who capped, so stick with me here. First up, this person out of the innovation office has been around the block in terms of been in the business for a while, has been a great addition to our community within the last 12 months, always challenging us in the way we think about the business and giving really good and honest feedback, which I really appreciate, because feedback loops are always important as you run businesses. With that, congrats to Kelly Barrett on capping in the month of August. Next up, out of Prestige, talk about someone who's been battling some personal things going on in his life. His wife, she's not sick. She's battling cancer. A clear distinction there. Not sick. She's battling. I got to give a shout out to John Bulua for everything he's done for him and his family and the success he's had this year. Congrats. Next up, someone who's come in and killed it. Is a great example of the world is run by those who show up, shows up to all the training and education, has poured into those that have poured into him, and has learned how to do it at a high level. I should say at a big level, because it's Big Ben Byers. Congrats, Ben, for capping in the month of August. Next up, a young buck who came to us at a young age trying to figure out this business, and has navigated really successfully, navigated his database very successfully, and continues to build every single day. Congrats to Benj for capping in the month of August. Next up, first and foremost, I want to thank her for her service to our country. This is a military service member who recently got out of the military and jumped into The real estate business has been in the business for less than a year and is already capped. Congrats to Brooke Drabick for capping in the month of August. Next up, I got to give a little bit of a plug. I've known this individual for a long time, and her husband just recently opened a new bar restaurant establishment in downtown Milwaukee in Cathedral Square. So go visit Foy's on the Square. Congrats to Lauren Foy for capping in the month of August. All right, next up, a great agent over in the North Shore office on Levine Realty Group has really leaned into the mentorship opportunity that her team has provided her in order to have success quickly. Maisha, congrats on capping in the month of August. Next up, over on Houseworks, again, learning how to lean into her community in order to build success. Congrats on Sarah Hughes for capping in the month of August. Next up, out in Lake Country, again, individual agent, just absolutely understanding how to build a business brick by brick, leaning into our community. Congrats to Ann Youngworth for capping in the month of August. All right, next up, I just recently looked at this because I led a mastermind last week on Thursday with this individual, and this person's tripled their income in the last 12 months. Got to give a shout out to Shawnee Levine for capping in the month of August. Another example of someone who, you know what, despite what life throws at them, they put their head down, they go to work, and they understand who and what they're doing it for. Congrats on Nicole McGonigal out in Lake Country for capping in the month of August. Next up, someone who has been in the business for a while, but recently transitioned over to the KW environment and is really thriving. You see it in the results of their business so far. Congrats to Sally Prell over in Tosa for capping in the month of August. Next up, someone who's been with us since day one they started in their business. You can see the fruits of their labor coming to fruition in terms of what they're doing and how they're scaling their business. Their life has changed dramatically because of it. And in that time, they've also had 2 kids and learning how to navigate what it means to be a young mom while also building a business. Congrats to Sarah Reardon for capping in the month of August. All right, a few more. Individual, again, another person on Levine Realty Group. I got to give a shout out to that whole team because we just looked at it. The entire team capped so far in 2025. Next person on that team to cap, Brandon Riles. Congrats, bud, for capping in the month of August. Next up, one of the OGs out in Lake Country. Her husband is an incredible friend of the program who's in the insurance business as well. She has 4 kids, navigating it every day, has her hand in a little bit of interior design and everything else in between. Congrats to Annie Stabler for capping in the month of August. Next up, I can't say a whole lot about this person because you'll understand why. I always say the standard is the standard. Congrats to Megs for capping in the month of August. Shit. All right. I'll move on fast. All right. Next up, in the month of August, another Levine Realty Group person. Incredible member of the community, incredible member of FTC, pouring into others. Congrats to Verche for capping in the month of August. All right, next up, last 2 people here. This individual is our resident arborist, isn't the right word. They maintain a beautiful array of flowers in the North Shore office while also building an incredible business. And the night of the Bucks Championship on July 12th of August 2021, they picked me up at 3 in the morning because you couldn't get an Uber home and I didn't know what to do. So who did I call? I called Brad Yates and Brad picked me up. Thank you, Brad, for continuing to be there every single day. Appreciate it. All right, next up and last, out in Lake Country, a great example of entrepreneurship. Her husband built a thing that goes over your stove that sells on Amazon, and it sells like hotcakes. They recently opened a store in Merton. She sells $20 million a year plus in real estate, has a young family, just had her 3rd. I mean, she just is an incredible example of entrepreneurship. Elena Zeman, congrats on capping in the month of August. All right, with that, I just want to share with you some incredibly exciting information. I was taking a look at some of the data post-August and the success that a lot of people are having. And if you remember, last week I shared with you the data so far year-to-date in 2025. And units are flat, volume is up 7%. Our environment, GCI in the month of August was up 35%, We paid out 7.4 million in gross commission incomes, and year to date, we paid out 46 million, which is a 24% increase over 2024. When you consider that the environment from a units perspective is flat and volumes up 7%, to see these kind of results is absolutely exceptional, exceptional. And I share this with you to say the power of community and the power of productivity. As it relates to profit share, we'll be paying out $61,000 in the month of August. That'll be paid out on September 21st, which brings our year-to-date total of $557,000 will be paid out in profit share in just southeastern Wisconsin. Time to get your unfair share. Cool? Yeah. All right, with that, I'm flipping it over to Vranek. Vranek, what do these guys need to know as it relates to where their reports are currently housed, or moving to, shall I say?
All right, good morning, everybody. Okay, so I've got an update for you guys, another update. We had an exciting one last week. We have another one this week. So all reports are now housed in Command. So the exciting part is that you don't have to go looking for where exactly these are located. Instead of having to log into a separate website, myKW, these are now going to be directly in Command under the Reports applet, along with all of the other applications that are part of Command. So it's super exciting because it's streamlining the process for where you go for all of that information about your business. So starting from yesterday to October 15th, you can essentially find these reports in both platforms. If you want to still log into mykw.kw.com, but they're also going to be in Command. And then after October 15th, they will be housed exclusively within Command. So keep that in mind, that myKW is really just a legacy website now, as they have been migrating a lot of that information exclusively within the Command platform. So what does this look like? So there's two different views. So it's a lot more of a modernized view, which is really exciting. So next slide, Charlie, I'll have both of those screenshots on there. So you have a tile view and you have a list view. So you can manage that and toggle between either or depending on the view that you prefer. There's ways that you can manage your frequently used reports, and you can search for reports and actually mark certain ones as your favorites so that they show up at the top, which is really nice because as you can see in the screenshots, there's quite a few different reports in here. The other thing that I want to note is that similar to what you had seen previously with some of those reports, like if you wanted to go in and look at your open rate and your click rate for your emails, those are still going to be housed in here along with a lot of those other reports from myKW. So just wanted to keep a note on that. Next slide. So you can also do custom views. You have different download options. So if you want to download these reports as a PDF, as a CSV file, as a PNG image, you can do all of that. So you can sort those, customize those views, those filters. You have a lot more options when you're managing those and viewing those reports in there. So what exactly is in here now? So you've got your closed transaction list and summary, your income summary statement, your monthly production summary, multi-year trends, listing detail, profit share, your 7-level downline, and sales transaction detail. Those are all housed now within Command. And so another screenshot just to see exactly what that is going to look like with some of those reports. So if you have questions on that, where to find those, let me know. But that's live as of yesterday.
Real quick, Linz, one of the things I want to touch on, and you'll see this within the model I'll touch base here on a second, is I've challenged you guys as it relates to what are the vital signs within your business. What I find is most real estate agents actually don't know their numbers at all. They don't know them. And it's shocking to me how you can create a plan towards the goals that you have without knowing your numbers, because the path is in the math. And the robust level of detail available to you within your reports is everything you would need in terms of the vital signs to your business. You have to know your business, okay? You have to know your business, and it starts with knowing your math. So these reports are incredibly helpful. And if you don't know what it is and you want to know where to start, my advice, start with the multi-year trends. The multi-year trends is the most robust report you could use as it relates to the vital signs of your business. All right, Linz.
Yeah, and so just another reminder that we mentioned last week, all Keller Williams associates now have access to their own Canva Enterprise account, which is essentially a Canva Pro, but better account. So not only do you have all of those pro features that come with that Canva account, you also have the entire Keller Williams brand kit and hundreds of different Keller Williams templates to utilize. So log in to canva.kw.com. You're going to use your command credentials to log in, but here are those QR codes again if you're interested for learning more information. We've got the FAQ, the how-to video. There's a few different training guides on answers.kw.com, but otherwise log in, dive in, play around with it. You've got a ton of capabilities, and this is all free and additional to everything else that we offer. So exciting stuff. And then finally, we've got part 3 of our AI Playbook this Thursday, September 18th at 11 on Zoom. So join me for this final training on that playbook. Last week, we talked a lot about how to personalize your prompt and how to feed that the right information. We put together a 36 touch plan, had that formulate an entire plan with content and topics and email subject lines and so many other things. So this week we're back at that, focusing on social media content, newsletter content, and how to exactly put that together using the prompts that you've already built. So join me on Thursday at 11. Thank you.
And all of these are recorded and uploaded to our YouTube channel for you to review afterwards.
Yes.
Cool. Thanks, Linz. All right, with that, Lieutenant Steph, what do these guys need to understand around their MLS contract uploads?
Good morning. Yes, pretty light this morning in terms of compliance issues, but we just needed to remind you guys on MLS contract upload requirements. A lot of times, I know we're moving fast, but we need to upload our listings data entry into MLS, obviously. But we oftentimes forget that we need to add the listing contract, and that if it's in delayed status, we need to add that delayed listing form as well. And Joan and I, the majority of our emails from MLS are around this topic specifically. So just please don't forget to upload those contracts. On the next slide, this is just an example of what these emails look like, and I'm sure you guys have received one. So again, please just be mindful and upload that contract in a timely manner. So then on an extension of this, I wanted to go over the delayed form specifically. I just highlighted this certain section on the delayed status form. A lot of us are using the delayed status as a tool for marketing, right? Like it allows us to market the home while the seller is still getting it ready for market. And it's a really helpful tool. I mean, we get to post on social media, right? We get to get the word out about the listing before showings and, start drumming up, as many showings as we possibly can. But with that, MLS is really, really strict around the rules with delayed. So once you identify a showing start date, they are very strict in that they will not move up that showing start date if you want to. So, maybe the seller was able to get the home prepped earlier than they had initially thought. You want to get the home on the market as soon as possible. MLS will not allow you to do that. And we're in real time running into an issue that they're not budging on. So we're going to be making a phone call soon here. So just as a reminder, I think the best course of action here is you're always allowed to extend that showing start date, but you cannot move it up. So if you think you might be in a position where you can move that showing start date up, or if you can just, move it up, I would start there, identify an earlier showing start date. And then if you run into the case where you need to extend it, then that's much easier than trying to battle with MLS to move it up. And then I also want to remind people that once you do get it into delayed status, you cannot expire it, you cannot withdraw it, you cannot change the listing price. So they really really hold us to that. So I just don't want to be putting our sellers in a compromised position if we can help it. So yes, again, just please be mindful of that. All right, so and then just to finish off with the September contract training. So next week, we're going to be going over buyer agent duties and the considerations you need to be making as a buyer agent, beyond working as an agent of a seller in a transaction. And then September 29th, I wanted to highlight this. The prevalence of home close contingencies is higher than it used to be. So just wanted to go over how the home close contingency works in conjunction with the bump clause and secondary offers. So I think this is another one that if you are a seasoned agent, would be good for you to attend and just be reminded of how these all work together. So that's that. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Steph. All right, I'm going to bring us home. I got 3 topics for you. Training and education first. We are entering into the period, and I've talked about this for the last 4 weeks. We are in the fall cleanup phase. You will soon be entering into a winter renewal where separation is in the preparation. Okay? And we're going to talk about preparation here in a little bit with an anecdote of a story. But I need you, and this is why I keep saying, like, I'm in this period of my life or the season of my life right now as I think strategically and I think forward and I think in the next 12 months as well as the next 36 months. And that planning strategically evolves every year at this time within the season of my life, both personally and professionally. And I'm challenging you to be thinking about that as well. Hence, part of the reason why, as you've been with us for a while, you start to see the ebb and flow of the training and education and events calendar. And that the reason why we have more robust, more intense options in the fall is because we're also following this as it relates to the energy dial. So, and I've shared with you this whole concept a few weeks ago, the video of how people spent their time from 1930 to 2024 and the connectivity that people have with one another, each other. And I'm going to belabor a point here real quickly because life is about choices. Agent productivity is the direct reflection of the choices they make. So let's look and see how this plays out. Okay. I've shared this with you, but I'm going to hammer it home one more time because Bold starts next week, September 25th. We have 65 people. We will be at roughly 40 for the class, I would imagine, based on the rate of registrations. 99.9% of you can't afford to not be in the room. That's a fact. How do I know that? Because here's what happens. When you're not in the room, you eat 0 burgers. 0 burgers. What happens? This person wasn't in the room. They liked 0 burgers in the first quarter. They were in the room. They were eating Grey Poupon and caviar. This person was eating good in the first quarter of 24. They ate 0 burgers in the first quarter of 25. This person ate good. They ate 0 burgers in the first quarter of 25. This team eats well and they continue to eat well and they understand why they eat well. There's no surprise. And collectively last year we had 144 people in the room and these were our results after Q1. That's not by a mistake. I don't like 0 burgers. And if you know anything about me, I do like the finer experiences in life. And I don't think that's a problem to admit. You know, right? If you work hard, you should be able to enjoy the fruits of your labor. My challenge to you is what choices are you making in the fourth quarter and how is that going to show up and how are you going to be eaten in the first quarter? Your choice. Okay, Bold's coming back, starts next week on the 25th. Everyone is encouraged to show up on day 1. If you don't know what it's about, show up on day 1. It's from 9 to 3 at the Zufari Conference Center. Day 1, though, is inside the zoo at the Peck Center. The really nice atrium, all glass, tons of natural light. Okay, Coach Amber will be back. You can see this was the group that participated last year. If you need a payment plan to split it up over 3 or 4 payments, we got you. If you need a scholarship, we got you. If you want to make a donation towards a scholarship, we got you. Okay? We have a very healthy, robust budget where I never allow the cost to be the reason why someone shouldn't get in the room. Because the return on investment is 1 incremental deal. The average agent does 7 incremental deals because of the program. Hence why I say you can't afford to not be in the room. So register for full Bold. It's the last pitch I'll make. If you want to eat well and you want to eat good and you want to live on the high hog, be there. If you want to eat a zero burger in Q1 and you want to find out what a zero burger tastes like, don't show up. That's cool. Life's about choices. Sound good? You're gonna get the reason to why my energy behind this here in a second as I correlate to you a life experience I had this weekend. Cool? All right. Here we go. September training calendar. One thing I want to point out, Brian Patt, an incredible agent out of the North Shore office, will be doing a rapid stats training on September 24th at 2 p.m. via Zoom. We will record it. We will upload it to the YouTube channel. But the rapid stats platform that Metro MLS provides is one of the more underutilized platforms. And Brian, I would consider to be a super user. So if you're interested, jump on that conversation with Brian Patt. Next, Opportunity Knocks, save the date, will be Thursday, October 16th from 4 to 6 p.m. at the Zufari Conference Center. This will be the opportunity where it's like speed dating for teams. Interested in a team? Come to Opportunity Knocks. Interested in starting a team and see what it takes and what the value proposition of teams offer? Show up. You never know what you might find, and it's an incredible way for us to connect talent with teams. Cool? All right. So I'm going to jump into market of the moment insights. Okay. Last week, I shared with you this data as it relates to what's winning within the market today. Okay. And I shared with you the August data. You can see the list price to accepted offer ratio data, the inspection contingency data, as well as the inspection threshold data, as well as co-broke commission is rising. Okay. Interesting to note. I also shared with you the grocery store market of the moment script, all which is available to you on the KW Realty MKE website under Agent Resources Hub that helps you kind of break down the data that I went through last week. Now I need to shift your mindset as it relates to as we're in the fall period and you're in the fall cleanup phase of your database. I think there's something that is often overlooked as it relates to the segmentation of your database, and that is the demographics at play. And a lot of you think about the size of your database, but you don't think about the demographics of your database. And so recently I read a Fortune article that talked about how today's housing market is so upside down. There are more senior citizens buying homes than Gen Z and millennials. Okay? It's behind a paywall. I paid it so that you can get all the insights. And here's the thing. It's factually true because I actually read the report before Fortune did an article to it. Fortune just helped us break it down a little easier for us to understand. Okay? This is all data provided by the National Association of Realtors to help you understand. And I would be thinking about this as you head into 2026 as it relates to who you communicate with, how you're communicating with them, and how you're segmenting your database based on demographics. So take a look. In 2024, according to data from the National Association of Realtors, 46% of homes were purchased by people over the age of 60. 46% of transactions. There were more buyers over the age of 70 than under the age of 35. 22% of all transactions had a buyer that was over the age of 70. 19% of all transactions had a buyer that was under the age of 35. First-time home buyers, the median age, which is the middle point of data in 2024, was 38. It was the highest on record. For perspective, 25 years ago in 1991, it was 28. Okay? Something to think about. Now, continuing on. As prices and rates have continued to go up, the median age of anyone transacting, buying or selling, was 56 years old last year. It was a record high. And it was up from 46 only going back in 2021. So it's up 10 years in 4 short years. And a lot of it has to do with price appreciation and rate hikes. The crux of it is that wages haven't kept up with the pace of home price appreciation and rent hikes, on top of the fact that student loan debt has outpaced all. So here's my synopsis for you as I was reading this, and if I was a real estate agent, I have 3 keys for you. Kind of 4, actually. The first key, which isn't on the slide, You need to be thinking about right now in the period of fall cleanup as it relates to your database. How are you segmenting your database, and what are the demographics of your database, and how are you communicating effectively to the different demographics within your database? Really, really important. A one-size-fits-all approach in terms of how you communicate isn't the right approach. Okay? 2, be your client's economist of choice. Help them navigate complex financial situations in order to provide solutions. Your job is to be a solutions provider. They might not transact real estate. Remember that. They might not transact, but your ability to provide a solution will be the ability for them to connect you to you and your brand to providing solutions. Don't wait. And it goes back to the whole sense of don't wait to buy real estate and wait. And time in the market beats timing the market. How do I know that? Because despite all of that data and what it's telling you, here's the home prices on an annualized basis of appreciation going back to 1990. The average person stays in their home 5 to 7 years. When you look at any 5 to 7 year window within appreciation going back to 1990, prices only go where? Up. So it's an incredible asset to have on your balance sheet in order to help your clients build net worth or provide solutions in terms of how do they access equity in order to create more opportunity for themselves or their communities or their family. Okay? Lesson 1 for today, you need to be thinking about your database, how you segment it, who you're communicating to, how you're communicating it, because it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. And I was hit over the forehead like a ton of bricks when I read this data. You need to be thinking about this as you start prepping your planning for 2026. You got me? And if I were you, I'd be in the bold room, but that's a shameless plug. Cool? Second piece for you. Oh, sorry, and still on this data. I share this with you. Here's the graph. I thought you might like the data. Here's a little bit of a breakdown. This is the percent of transactions in 2024. Okay, and it broke it down by generation. Ages 46 to 79, they were 75% of sellers and 66% of buyers. Ages 27 to 45, they were 14% of sellers and 17% of buyers. So again, database segmentation is vitally important as you think about your strategic plans heading into 2026 and beyond. Cool? All of this will be available to you in the team meeting slides immediately after on the KW Realty MKE website. Now, here's the second piece of it, okay? And this is correlating your business to how you communicate, what your value proposition is, and how people view you. I've shared with you this model that was shared with me from the time I spent with Gary back in July, as it relates to how we need to be thinking about the model of our brand. And I've shared with you, it starts with a brand and what is your brand promise? How do you utilize data? How are you implementing AI? And how are you creating marketing mediums to communicate what your brand promise is by leveraging AI and utilizing data? Okay? But I want to focus at the top of the model. Brand. What is the brand's promise? The challenge to it is you have to understand it better than anyone else, and you have to live it every day. Okay? And one of the things that you guys, for those who've been around a while, know that I obsess over a few things in life. One, I obsess over competition. I love competition. I thrive on competition. I embrace pressure. I embrace stress. I think the best of people show up when you put pressure on them. You will be amazed at how people show up when they feel pressure. It goes back to the whole thing is you can't make diamonds without pressure. Okay? I'm obsessed with competition. I love seeing people compete. Last year during the Olympics, you saw a lot of team meetings about the Olympics because I love watching the pressure it takes when someone's under pressure, how they compete and how they compete most effectively. Okay? And I'm obsessed with the process it takes to compete. What is the process people are in order to compete? Okay, so I'm going to share with you a little bit of an anecdotal story. This past weekend on Friday, I took my son to Tuscaloosa, Alabama for a father-son trip. Okay. And we went because Wisconsin played Alabama. We did a Friday, Saturday, Sunday little trip. And I'd never been to Alabama. I'd been to an SEC football game, but I'd never been to Alabama. For context and perspective, I coached high school football for 8 years. I think football is one of the game's purest sports of where you need 11 guys to do their job in order to create a successful outcome. I love how that it's hard. I love that it's challenging. And so I really enjoy football for those reasons, outside of like the obvious of why everyone likes football, okay? Here's what I'd share with you on the trip, though. And these were some insights or things that I gathered as it relates to how I think about businesses and brands, because Alabama football, don't get it twisted, is a brand. Okay? They've won more conference championships and more national championships than any college football program in the country. 34 conference championships, 18 national championships. Everywhere you go in the town of Tuscaloosa, which, by the way, the campus is like a mile wide by a mile deep. It's not big. Everywhere you go, it oozes with history and it oozes with their standard. And you know what their standard is? Championships. It oozes. And I would parlay it very similarly for many of you who are Green Bay Packers fans. I would say it's a very, very similar experience to what you experience in Green Bay. Everywhere you go in Green Bay, what do you notice? The Lombardi Trophy. The streets are named after championship coaches. The Super Bowl rings are in the middle of the park. Everywhere you go in Green Bay, you are reminded of a championship pedigree. When they walk out of the tunnel in Green Bay, they walk through a plaque that says generations of champions, 13-time world champions, have walked past this tunnel to get on to the field. Alabama, very similarly, before the team walks out, this is the middle picture, they go through the Walk of Champions. They have about a couple thousand people who greets the team 2.5 hours before they get into the stadium, and they walk through this walkway with plaques of the 34 conference championships and the 18 national championships, so that as the players enter the stadium, they are reminded of the standard. Along the Walk of Champions, they have a huge bronze statue of every coach who's ever won a national championship there. They are constantly reminded around the standard of excellence in which they expect. The irony to it, there was a really funny TikTok recently during the Powerball situation. Alabama lost their first game of the season to unranked Florida State. And if you were paying attention to the Powerball last week, it was $1.8 billion. And there was an older woman that was interviewed on the news in Tuscaloosa, and they asked her, what would you do if you won the Powerball? Mind you, they lost one game. In college football now, you can lose a game or two because of the way the playoffs set up and still win a national championship. They lost one game. And you want to know what happened to the energy of that town? I experienced this weekend. Public enemy number one is their head coach because they lost the game. If you watch the TikTok, do you know what the woman says? Man, what are you going to do if you win 1.8 billion? I'll tell you, I'll take the first 70 million and I'm going to buy out that coach because it's buy out 70 million. Okay. The TSA, I went through TSA and I asked the guy, because we were wearing Wisconsin gear all weekend. He asked, I was like, hey, how's it going? He was like, man, good thing we beat you. Otherwise that coach would be on your plane home with you. Okay. My point being to it is they have such an ethos to what their standard is that everyone's bought in. And my belief is that pressure creates such an elevated, people show up into that environment, in terms of players and coaches, and they either elevate up or they elevate out. Because the pressure allows them to compete at a level they might not have otherwise believed they could, or they elevate out because they can't stand the pressure. You want to embrace the pressure. Here's my last little nugget as it relates to this trip with my son and the lessons I learned in terms of the ethos of their brand, okay, is this. On Sunday morning, we went to Ramajama's. It is a tiny little diner. This was Sunday morning after the game. They have 4 things on their menu. Eggs in a variety, 3 different ways, and pancakes. That's it. 4 things. The place is packed. And it oozes with tradition. The walls are lined with pictures of championships. It's lined of pictures of guys and autographs. It's lined. You go to pay for your breakfast, and they have all 18 of their national championship rings at the register just to remind you as to what their standard is. And this is at the freaking diner in town. Okay? One sec. And I want to share with you, when we were sitting there eating breakfast, I found a letter on the right of the door as you enter and exit the restaurant. And we were waiting for our breakfast, and I read this with my 8-year-old son. Here was the letter. I took a picture of it. The letter is from Coach Bear Bryant, who won, I think, 5 or 6 national championships at the University of Alabama. And the letter was to a recruit on August 5th, 1970. And the letter was to the recruit before they arrived on campus. Okay? And if you want to read it, you can read it by jumping into the slides after post-team meeting. But I want to take one little segment of the letter. Okay? And I transcribed this to you so it was a little easier to read. It says this: I prefer to start by winning and continue winning, but this can only happen if you are really ready mentally and physically when you report to practice. Start now by setting your goals high and begin preparing yourself. Remember, the will to win is important, but the will to prepare to win is more important. The will to win is important, but the will to prepare to win is more important. What is your environment? What does it say about you? What does it say about your brand? What does it say about your standard? What do people say about you? What do people say about your brand? What does it say? What do they say about your brand promise? And you have an opportunity now heading into 2026 to be thinking about that as it relates to how do you want to set yourself up for success into 2026 and beyond. There are lessons all around you in life. All you have to do is open your eyes and embrace them. That's my message for you today. Cool? With that, guys, it's a beautiful day in Milwaukee. Thanks for showing up. We'll hope to see you next week in the Bold Room. If you have questions, let us know. Otherwise, it's a great day to be at KW. Thanks, guys, for showing up. Have a great day.